Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio today with my partners in crime, Bryan Leonard and Ralph Michaels. We're going to break down the Final Four. We're going to start off with Cinderella, Loyola Chicago, and Michigan. And guys, at what point do we stop calling Loyola a Cinderella team? I mean, I know they were ranked the 11th seed in this, but they should have been a lot lower seed than they were. This is a team that we talked about numerous times. I know we've done podcasts, videos, radio shows. This is a complete team. They're number 3 in the country offensively, hitting over 50% of their shots, 17th in the country from 3, and they're a top 25 defensive team. Bryan, when you look at this Loyola team and what they've done, can they continue this run against the most athletic team they faced thus far?
Yeah, you're talking about being seeded wrong. I had them like 35th in the country, so they should have been a little bit higher, probably in the 7 or 8 range. But yeah, they've got great guard play, and we've been able to see that. But keep in mind, the teams that they've been playing, they've been a slight underdog too. So they haven't had real tough competition. This line will be the highest that they've had when they play Tennessee and when they play Michigan here. So it's nice to see this run. I wouldn't buy too much into it, but this is still a quality team.
Ralph, you look at this team and you look at the coach and what a job Porter Moser has done here. And he's a guy that came from one of my favorite coaches. You talk about coaching trees and where people, learn their craft. But he was with Rick Majerus. And for me, Rick Majerus, I thought, was one of the best college basketball coaches. When it came to X's and O's and looking at details and teams being prepared, his teams always were. And we've seen that so far with Loyola.
Yeah, he does Majerus. You remember those Utah and St. Louis teams, the exact same scenario. You get to 60 points, you win the game, you play great defense, and that's exactly what he did. But, I look at the run Loyola had, and I agree with Bryan. You look at Ken Palm numbers, they would be about a 7 or an 8 seed if you scheduled them, from start to bottom. But you look at their 3 wins by 4 points. They beat Miami without their best player, Bryce Brown, who's going to be a first-round draft choice. They beat Tennessee without 6'11" Kyle Alexander, one of their top rebounders. They beat Nevada without their point guard, Lindsey Drew. And they beat Kansas State without their best player by far, Dean Wade. They've had a good run of playing teams that haven't been up to their full potential. Michigan's up to their full potential. Michigan plays incredible defense. Michigan has tall interior defenses. I like the Wolverines. And you look at the lines. You have a 3 against 11 seed with a 5-point line. You have 2 number 1 seeds with a 5-point line. That tells you something. Again, we're saying they're not a 3 and 11. Well, Michigan is strong enough in my mind to have been a 1 or 2 seed as well. So Loyola was seeded lower than they should have. I think Michigan was as well.
You talk about Michigan, and we've spent the first half of this video talking about how good Loyola's played, and they have. They are a team that in each game so far, it's been a different player that's been a star because they do play great team basketball. I mean, they're balanced offensively with the scoring, but finally they're going to face a team that's the same way. Michigan can go deep with their bench, and Michigan's playing great basketball. You look at the run they had at the end of the basketball season. They've won 13 in a row. They're 10-2-1 against the spread. One of those point spreads that they didn't cover was a game after they had that big break from the Big Ten tournament. We talked about it several times. They played a week earlier than everybody else, and they might have had a little bit of a rust factor. And then, of course, the Michigan-Florida State game last week. We got a lot of Twitter was quite lively at the end of that game last week with Leonard Hamilton not fouling with 11 seconds left and down 4. End up being, depending when you bet that game, either a half-point win, a push, or a half-point loss on that game. But you look at Michigan, they are a team at the right time. And I think their depth in being athletic. They played Kansas State. Talk about catching a team at the right time. As you said, without their best player, but you also caught them off a monumental upset of beating Kentucky. And I know that they were playing for the Final Four, so they shouldn't have a letdown. But for Kansas State to beat Kentucky and then have to come back 2 days later, they shot horribly against Loyola. And really, the only reason that the game was even as close as it was the turnovers that Loyola had in that game. And that's something that they're going to have to clean up against the Michigan team. They've had 31 turnovers in the last 2 games.
Keep in mind the 2 guards for Loyola, which have been stars for them, They grew up in that general area of where Kansas and Kansas State is. So when they got the chance to play Kansas State, a team that overlooked them, they came out and really showed them. And if they were able to win here, and then the other dog wins, they'll be able to play Kansas too. I'm in agreement. I think the Michigan's the right side. They've got more athletes on that team, and the coaching finally is equal on both sides, because this is a tremendous coaching tree here that both guys are very good at coaching. And I think the reason why we like Majerus is because he was fat. But
Hey,
I think the fat
absolutely.
coaches are the best coaches, just like the fattest commentators are the best commentators.
There you go. Well, I resemble that remark. All right, well, let's make it unanimous. We all say the clock is going to strike midnight for Cinderella Loyola. We all are on Michigan. Sorry, Sister Jean. I know I'll get cracked with the ruler again, just like the old days of being back in Catholic school. But we're going Michigan. Lay the points here for the first one. And guys, if you want to save $10 this week on a package, well, it's Final Four weekend. Use coupon code FINAL and the number 4. It'll take $10 off your package. Just put that coupon code in when you check out. And guys, if you like our videos, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to share it with all your friends. We'll be back with Kansas and Villanova up next.